Good evening. Welcome into the State Farm Center. Shout out to all our live YouTube listeners here with the Illini Inquirer podcast, live after Illinois wins their season opener. Derek Piper, there was a basketball game here at State Farm Center. Felt like it took Illinois a little time to realize there was a basketball game going on. They get down 15-6 to Eastern Illinois, miss 12 of their first 13 threes, 6 of their 8 first free throws. It was ugly, but as we're seeing, Michigan State upset tonight. Rutgers upset tonight. This is why they play some of these games, but Illinois able to dominate the final, 30, 35 minutes in this game. 80-52, they get the win over Eastern Illinois. A lot of ugliness with the starters. Some good from Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, 18 points in his debut, leads Illinois off the bench, really sparked them. Terrence Shannon, 16 points. He really took over this game at the midway point around halftime. But Illinois dominates as they should in the final 30 minutes here. But what a rough 10 minutes that was. And we will react to one of the Illini who will not be playing this season, according to Brad Underwood. But first thoughts, Derek, on the game that happened.
We got through it together. The first 10 minutes, man, that was some bad basketball. And for a minute there, you're sitting there wondering, like, this team beat Kansas? Really? But, like you mentioned, there's some around the country, some teams getting back in a groove and trying to find themselves and work out some rust, if that's what it is. Although Illinois really shouldn't have a ton of rust. I think that, Terrence Shannon spoke to us after the game. Brad talked about it. This team didn't really have a lot of life early. They didn't have a lot of juice and energy, and they were getting beat up on the glass, which was a little surprising. And I'm not overreacting too much. I joked with you that I wanted to delete my column because I said I was all in on this team, and then there was a little bit of reminiscent of last year of maybe taking things a little lightly and not having assertiveness from your star and whatnot. But one night sample size, you don't want to take too much, but you'd like to see Illinois maybe step on the throat a little bit earlier on in the game. But it's one basketball game. Coleman Hawkins played great against Kansas, didn't play very good tonight. Terrence started really slow. But, yeah, I mean, some bright spots. Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn for sure. And ultimately you beat one of the worst teams in Division I. So you got that done, and you're not feeling the pain of Michigan State or Rutgers tonight. So you move on, but you do have to be better because Oakland gave Ohio State all they could handle tonight in Columbus, and you're going to see them on Friday.
This is human nature. We've seen this many times covering Illinois basketball, Derek. We just got to see how pumped up they were to play the number one team in the country at home. Like they were up for that game, and it's easy to get up for that game. It's not as easy to get up for Eastern Illinois, but that's the job of the veterans, of the starters, to do it. And Coleman Hawkins didn't bring it tonight. I think that's clear. I'm a big fan of his game, but he just didn't bring the energy. I didn't think Terrence led his team, and Terrence said that after the game. Those guys felt like they were playing Eastern Illinois. Like we show up, we're going to win, and they did. They did. They found a way to win against one of the worst teams in the country, at least according to Ken Pom and all these metrics. But I think Brad Underwood deep down probably loved it. I asked him about that after the game. You get to humble your team. You get to teach your team. He gets to do Brad Underwood things for the next 4 days leading into Oakland. We're seeing teams across the country kind of start off really poorly. North Carolina was another one that started off really poorly. Again, Michigan State loses, Rutgers loses. This is why you schedule bye games, Derek. This is why you schedule the patsies a little early, and then you learn from it. You get to rev your guys up. Oakland's going to be a tougher test. They shoot the heck out of it with threes, and then you got Marquette this week. I'm sure they'll be pumped up for that. So I don't think there's going to be a recurring issue for this team.
I would hope not, certainly. I think that, Marquette, as far as we saw them get up for Kansas, I don't see there being any way that they're not amped up and ready to battle in that game. And I just think in terms of – and, again, this is one night, just trying to change the vibes around the team, the chemistry, just kind of the overall mentality from last year to try to, I think, rid yourself of some of that inconsistency last year, just some of the passiveness of the veterans, of the leaders. I think it would have been a great opportunity to just come out and show that, hey, we're just in kill mode right now. We don't care who's out there against us. We want to just dominate and assert our will. Now, again, I think Eastern did a good job with their defensive intensity early. They really pushed Illinois' offense out beyond the three-point arc and didn't allow them to get into a flow and everything. So you do have to take into account that it's early in the season. There's going to be a little bit of going to be some ups and downs, and you can't play your A game every night. But I think in terms of some of the controllable stuff, like the rebounding, the energy, the grit, and just needing Terrence to maybe take over in a stretch where you're down, 15 to 6 or whatever it was. This sounds like a broken record from last year. Now, again, you won by almost 30. It's one night, but those are some things. If I'm Brad Underwood, that I'm drilling into my guys in practice this week. That hey, we set standards. We said we're going to be different. This type of stuff. Like, let's clean this up and make sure it doesn't pop up, because there are teams that you could sleepwalk against that can actually beat you. Eastern not good enough to do that tonight. Obviously, we saw Penn State do that to you last year, and there's some squads out there, maybe a Colgate, that could do that to you if you do that, with regularity.
Yeah, I was going to say Colgate because it's the week after finals. You have barely any games before and after it, and until bragging rights, like that one screams that. But yeah, I think Terrence Shannon's the guy I want to see be revved up right away. He's talked about being more of a leader. You got to do that, but at least he brought it at some point tonight.
Yeah, right.
I didn't see that really from Coleman at any point, though he did have 5 rebounds. Like Terrence took over the game when he needed to take over the game and found a way to win. But you'd like that to start right from the start. Let's talk about Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, Derek. Boy, he looked every bit confident and just gave you the spark that you needed. And you saw his full offensive repertoire on display. His speed in the fast break, his explosiveness at the rim to finish at the rim 3 straight times during that personal 6-0 run that gave Illinois the lead after they got down by as much as 9. And then the second half, you really saw, his mid-range and 3-point game get going, hit a couple jumpers, then the 3-pointer on an own 7-0 run there, 7 of 10 from the field, got after it a little bit on the glass. Listen, I don't think Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn is going to do that every night, but again, like we talk about the depth of this team, the fact that you have that guy that can come in and potentially give you an offensive spark. He's going to have way bigger tests ahead of him. Remember, Adam Miller had 28 points in one of his first games. I'm not expecting this every game from Dre, but he's got it in his bag, man.
He's talented. He's very talented. I like the response after outing against Kansas where he didn't get a lot of tick. And I'm sure that knowing kind of his competitive makeup, I mean, he's a tough, hungry guy, plays with a chip on his shoulder. And obviously Brad mentioned there in the post game that, he was the best player in practice this week, and it translated that over to this game. So I like hearing that. I don't think he necessarily needs confidence, because Brad continues to hammer home that he doesn't lack in that. But I do think there's something to be said for getting your feet wet in a college game and just kind of feeling like you belong out there, you're in a groove out there. I think he can come away from this feeling that and put a case out there that, he can play in some meaningful games. You're going to have one as soon as next week against Marquette. And I know we're going to talk about it more with Sencire Harris, but I think that him being an energy guy off the bench is something that Gibbs-Lawhorn can bring. And he's got tenacity about him. He's defensively, I think he's got a lot of upside as he kind of figures out some awareness things and positioning and how to fight through screens. It's just some stuff you pick up along the way as a veteran that you kind of add to just kind of the raw athleticism of a guy like that and just kind of the competitive nature of it. But yeah, I mean, scoring is something that he's certainly capable of. There's a reason he goes one EYBL session, and which you got a lot of the top players in the country, and he leads the session in scoring. He's the MVP. And so he's had some moments like this on some big stages. I just liked how he attacked the rim. I mean, there was a stretch there where Illinois just needed something. They were laboring. They were chucking a bunch of threes and not many going in. They were missing free throws left and right. And Dre goes and cleans up a putback and puts it in, and then 2 straight drives kind of on the fast break to the rim that he scores. So he's got that in his bag. He's got the jump shot, which has been streaky at times, but had the 3 going tonight. And I just love the attack mode that he played with, and just to go out with aggression and do his thing.
Boy, the starters and specifically the transfers really struggled from 3 tonight. Illinois starts 1 for 13. Domask 1 for 6. I thought he was really good, just controlling the pace. Really good job passing the ball. Got after a little bit defensively too, but Quincy Guerrier 0 of 3 from 3. Coleman Hawkins 0 of 2. Ty Rogers shot 1 tonight. Justin Harmon quiet. So those transfers who we praised after Kansas, and we saw all that experience pay off, it's really the bench, Derek, with Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, Luke Goody hitting 3 threes along with 6 rebounds tonight. Dane Danger, 8.6 rebounds. And Imani Hansberry, 14 minutes, almost got a double-double. 8 rebounds, 7 points for him, along with 2 assists. Hansberry's going to find a role here, man, but that's a good thing. Like Coleman Hawkins, Quincy Guerriere struggle, and Dane Danger, Imani Hansberry, Luke Goody give you something in that front court.
Yeah, it helps to have depth, and it helps to have the ability to kind of hold people accountable when you have that depth. When a guy's not bringing it, you can afford to play Coleman 14 minutes. And again, it helps when you're in a game that is kind of non-competitive there in the second half and you don't worry too much. But that's something where maybe Illinois last year without as much of that, where there'd be times you'd like to sit a guy down on the bench if he wasn't playing hard enough or taking bad shots. And I think they got some of that ability to do that this year. So, and just it's one of those rosters where it can be different guys' nights. Like Luke didn't play well against Kansas. Quincy obviously did, and Luke tonight came in and made shots and got after on the glass a lot better than some others out there. I mean, Quincy had 1 rebound in his 20 minutes, and Luke obviously, I think he had 6 and 18. He had 9.6 rebounds for him, hit 3 threes. So that was really good. Imani's just – his motor runs really, really well. He's just very tough, wants to compete, keeps plays alive, and I love that about him. He even hits a 3 tonight. So I thought that was really encouraging just to see him. Kansas was a little rough, his stretch out there, and you saw him against some size inside, which that's still going to be a question going forward, is how he handles that and how he just kind of really can be composed and be an impact player there. But I did like what he was able to bring, and those guys, the bench had to bring it because the starting lineup, for whatever reason, didn't have it today, and that is something that Illinois hopes is a strength going into some bigger matchups, and tonight was a good starting point.
Yeah, I do want to mention, I said 1 for 13 start from 3, then they went 9 for 19. At one point, it was 7 of 11 after that 1 for 13 stretch. All right, we'll get to some of your questions on the live YouTube. If you want to send those in, we'll get to those. And we'll hear from Brad Underwood on Sencire Harris, and Derek Piper and I will talk about the impact of Sencire Harris redshirting this season. Pretty odd, but we'll discuss it. But first, let's hear from one of our great sponsors.
Let's talk about home field apparel since the start of the season. There are a lot of collegiate apparel brands out there, but we wanted to partner with Home Field because their designs are the best out there. Some of Illini Inquirer's favorites are the basketball ringer tee, the rose tee, and the 1980s long sleeve with the script Illini. It's great. Be sure to check out homefieldapparel.com, filter by Illinois, and see what we're talking about. And our listeners get an exclusive deal using code Illini23. Using that code Illini23 gets you 15% off your first order. We all know you're wearing Illini gear, so if you're in need of a refresh, we really think that you should check out Home Field Apparel, which has the best designs, and these shirts, guys, are really comfortable. Their designs are super unique, and a lot of thought goes into each concept. There's really nothing else on the market like what Home Field is doing. You can find them at homefieldapparel.com and use code Illini23 for 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com.
All right, Derek, let's talk about the big news that came out of this. Illinois basketball always provides some drama, it feels like, and Sencire Harris did not play, and he was not on the media availability report, which the Big Ten is also doing for basketball now. And you asked him after the game, first question Brad Underwood got is from Derek Piper about Sencire Harris. So here's Brad Underwood discussing that.
I heard you say that Sencire's going to redshirt. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
What went into that decision for him and on your side of it as well?
Yeah, it's he's a really, really good player. And I think one of the things that he understands about his development is that he needs to get stronger. He needs to get bigger. And it's come at a little slower pace for him. And I just think that down the road, there's going to be instead of a 10-minute a game guy, there's going to be a 25-minute a game guy who's we know he's a very, very good defender, but there's going to be a guy that adds 15 pounds, 18 pounds. There's going to be a guy that his time will help and that year will pay off. And then I'm so excited for him on the academic side as well. The opportunity to get put himself in a great position to graduate and then do work beyond.
All right, Derek, I want to be real with our audience here. Like, my skepticism radar just goes way through the roof. right? Like whenever you hear these things, whether it's Sky Clark or now Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, listen, they have the right to their privacy. We'll ask about it. We'll dig into things like this. But Sencire Harris played a significant role on last year's team, made a significant impact in some huge games, UCLA, Texas, Northwestern, in changing those games. We thought he could play a role on this team. I thought it'd be a specialty role where it's like, hey, this game you play 15 minutes, this game you might play 2. And that could be very difficult. But played 11 minutes in the first exhibition, played 7 minutes against Kansas. Knew his role wasn't going to be as big with Justin Harmon here, Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, giving them more offense off the bench. But I don't know if what Brad Underwood said is 100% true or not, if it's, what's going to happen with Sencire Harris. But, yeah, I got questions about whether he's going to be a long-term piece of this team, or maybe if Brad Underwood's telling the complete truth, maybe they see 3 more years after this where he could be a bigger piece. But I'm skeptical when some of these things come out, because it's a rarity for a guy who played a big role to redshirt his next year.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. This story is still developing. Well, let's put that as the disclaimer, I guess. I do have a call to return after this podcast, so maybe we'll have some added late night insight. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think that honestly, one thing that came to my mind, and it took some digging into the old NCAA rules that have been updated as far as transfers go. Look, the first thing I thought of, honestly, was, all right, is he going to be a mid-year transfer? Is he a guy that's preserving his eligibility? Is he then going to, like a lot of people have in recent years, then in December after that first semester transfer and go set up his next landing spot? A guy that, wasn't really expected to have a huge role, but that's not to say he wasn't in competition for minutes. I think Justin Harmon's arrival and then emergence in this rotation as an older guy that's more offensively capable than Sencire, more experienced than Sencire, kind of trumps him, very much trumps him, in my opinion, in terms of the rotation. Again, not to say that Sencire, I think we've talked about this in the past, that he, at this point, he's kind of a specialty player. He's kind of a defensive specialist, an energy guy, offensively still a lot to work on and clean up with his jump shot. I do think that he's shown flashes of being better at the rim than he was as a freshman, obviously, but he's got a ways to go to really solidify, as a 15, 20 minute a game, obviously beyond that at this college level. But to provide some context, with the transfer portal window, he can't go into the portal if he were trying to do that, if that was even a thought on his mind, until after this season. So the mid-year transfer seems to completely be taken out of this game, if I'm interpreting that right. And I think that's the way it goes, I think.
Yeah, there's only one transfer portal window, and it's Selection Sunday for the next 45 days. That's it for college basketball.
Right. So that adds another wrinkle to this. I think, it's just so rare for guys to redshirt these days, especially ones that have already kind of made their way and shown that they're capable and ready to play in college basketball, especially at the high major level. And I'll be honest, there was some talk this offseason of, go back to the spring and maybe – based on what Illinois was going to get in the portal and based on some decisions, obviously, with Terrence and what the backcourt would look like, would Sencire look for a bigger role, more guaranteed minutes? Because I think there was some talk of him wanting that. And why wouldn't you? So I'm trying to kind of, without knowing all the inside information, because this surprised us.
Well, I think it's important for us to say we're skeptical of it, right? But let's go down the road. I want to say this, like, if he made this decision, I think it'd be almost refreshing and potentially a really good decision. Like if this is 100% true that he wants to get stronger and that Brad Underwood sat down and said, hey, Sencire, you might play 10 minutes a game at the most this year, but we think you can be a star for us down the road, right? Or you can be a starter who gets 25 minutes playing in the Big Ten. Once your offense develops, once you get stronger so you can finish at the rim and use all that athleticism and length, I think it'd be like a refreshing decision for me, because like kids don't redshirt because they can just go somewhere else and play now. But if he really wants to play at the Big Ten level and play for Illinois and play for Chester Frazier, who recruited him, and play for Brad Underwood, who recruited him, I think that'd be a good decision for him for the long term if he wants to stick it out at Illinois. So if that is the case, like I would be like, hey, good for you, Sencire. Like you made a decision that a lot of people probably have too much pride to make. Even when Michael Finke redshirted, it was rare then his freshman year, but it was the smart decision. It was the smart decision because he wasn't ready. And I think Sencire now with Justin Harmon here, Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn here, can see that, man, I can't count on minutes. If I want to maximize my minutes in college, maybe I should redshirt. Whether that's here or somewhere else remains to be seen. But if it is here, I think it'd be commendable.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I do think there's something to be said for now that you're exiting kind of the COVID window of guys coming in with COVID years, then there's a little bit more of a sensitivity to what that 1 year of an eligibility looks like, especially for a guy that's going to be you'd assume a 4-year player in college. So if he were to play a role this year where he's the 8th, 9th, 10th man in the rotation, whatever it would end up being, then he's got 2 years left in terms of trying to solidify and become the type of player that he wants to be. So he does need to get stronger. He needs to improve his shot, obviously. And I still like his potential upside. I think if he can fine tune some things within his offensive game, if he can become stronger for sure, and just kind of get more experience and awareness and everything. But I think you battle that with also the idea that you look back at last year's biggest wins, and they beat UCLA, and Sencire was really the igniter of that comeback. I mean, obviously Terrence hits 8 threes, but Sencire was the first guy that Brad mentioned because he gets all up in Tiger Campbell's business and turns him over and starts that defensive switch. Texas against Marcus Carr did a really good job. Boo Booey here late in the season. There was
that's a good question, Derek. You're basically asking the question, like, what is the impact of not having Sencire Harris this season?
Yeah, it's the ability to try to shut the water off of a guard that you feel like can hurt you, or if you're flat like Illinois was tonight. That's why I think that was the first sign of something's up with Sencire, is that he wasn't on the injury report, or there was no indication of him not playing, and Illinois is down 9 to Eastern, and they're lifeless essentially. Sencire Harris is the guy that you call upon to go in there and obviously change the momentum and turn the tide, and he's creating just energy plays and dive on the floor and being gritty about that. So that's what he brings. I think Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn did that tonight in terms of being that shot in the arm. I think he can do that. You're just going to need that to be picked up from someone like Draven and maybe some of these other guys like Justin Harmon off the bench. I just think, obviously Draven's got a decent amount to learn this year, a lot to be excited about, but Sencire got to learn some of the stuff through last year's experiences that he obviously could have applied this year. So we're speculating. We're trying to figure this thing out. If Sencire is making that decision for the long term, I think it's obviously it's a pivot based on just kind of the microwave mentality that's going on right now in the NCAA basketball and in other sports as well. So I'll be interested to follow up on it. But yeah, I mean, it immediately kind of raises your eyebrows and makes you question, admittedly.
Bring this up. 2022 recruiting class, Derek. Ty Rodgers, the only one playing this season. The only one in sophomore year that'll be making an impact on the team. That's just a shock for what was a good recruiting class. By the way, recruiting classes I want to bring up because signing day is later this week. So we'll talk about the 2024 class. Anything else you want to hit on, Derek? We saw some minutes from Nico Moretti tonight. Mm-hmm. He had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 turnovers. So obviously up and down performance from him. Ty Rodgers, I thought was pretty good early again, 6 points, but only 2 rebounds in his time there. No assists, no turnovers for him there. So anything else you want to hit on from some of these guys?
Yeah, I think Nico made some nice plays. I do think I can see it offensively in terms of the way he processes the game. I think that there's a life to the ball when he has it in his hands, like as far as like what he sees and how the ball kind of pops around. And he made some mistakes. Like he turned it over, he traveled. So 3 turnovers. You heard Underwood after one of those travels later in the game just say, be solid, just be solid with the ball. And that's something that, whether it's Draven or Nico, they want those guys to be more steady, more reliable to get those minutes and maybe some bigger games. But defensively, we'll see. I still wonder about him against some bigger guys, some more athleticism. But I've heard a lot. Brad spoke highly of just kind of his court vision and just kind of overall being one of the few, if only, pure point guards on this roster.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a little bit of that tonight, so I like that. I thought Dane would have got going a little bit more tonight. I think some of it was part of his touches. Thought they didn't feed him enough inside.
I thought the exact same thing. I mean, Dane was made to feast on mid majors, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a good Big Ten player too, and he's a great guy to bring off the bench. But Dane should be feasting on it, and they just did not get him the ball enough.
Yeah, I mean, he hit he hit Hamlin with a nice little like drop step through him and an and one, and I just think they could have fed him, and he could have probably had 20 if they actually made that effort. He only played 12 minutes tonight, coming off a game against Kansas where he played 9 or 10.
Yeah.
So I just want to see him get the ball more.
Yeah, I think he would have played a lot more in a normal game. I think Brad wanted to get Imani a lot of minutes after he didn't have a great performance against Kansas, and I think he kept Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn in late. I think to continue to build up his confidence, but. Good early showing for Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn and Monty Hansberry, the class of 2023. We were just talking about the lack of guys other than Ty Rodgers in the class of 2022. That's a good showing after those guys didn't play much against Kansas. So how does it translate going up against Marquette? I'm not sure, Derek, but
right.
This is where you want these guys to make an impact and gain some confidence.
Absolutely. I mean, that's probably the biggest value you can get out of these games. I mean, good, bad, or indifferent, whether it's Terrence, Coleman, those guys, you're not going to probably change your opinion too much on. Even Marcus and Justin and Quincy. So being in a position where you're up big enough to get those guys legit minutes is really something that matters greatly for their development throughout the season. And just if you get in a spot in Marquette and you're in a pinch because of foul trouble or, I keep saying knock on wood in case there's an injury, you want to see what that looks like. I know that as of right now, in particular, as it goes for Nico and Dre, that it seems like Brad's most comfortable if Ty's not the point guard, that Marcus Damasco have the ball in his hands. Quick aside, I think Marcus goes 1 for 6 from 3 tonight. I think he'll be fine, but want to see those threes go down for sure. But yeah, you want these guys getting confidence, and that's why you play some of these games. Kind of on that note of 3-point shooting, though, I remember being told this team was going to take less threes. They're taking a lot of threes. You go to the exhibition games. I know that, Kansas, they shot a lot of free throws. So that kind of takes away some of your what would be 2-point field goal attempts. But it was like 52% of their field goal attempts in the exhibitions were threes. And tonight, 32 of their 58 shots were threes. This team chucked it a little bit.
I'm still waiting to see. And Terrence was dominated at certain stuff. I'm still waiting to see that mid-range game that we heard about. I'm interested to see, because I thought sometimes he got out of control going to the rim, and we saw that at times last year. People are going to collapse on him, and I thought he did a better job of moving the ball baseline. He would get it out and get the ball moving. Got Luke Goody a couple open threes, but the mid-range game for him, that runner game, I'm interested to see if that develops on the court here, because I didn't really see it against Kansas or in this game.
Yeah, it's something that I think he's still got to find a feel with, to get a comfort of when to pick those spots. And I'm sure he'll go back and maybe see some stuff on film that, there's some times tonight that he's had this even, last year, where he wants to be aggressive going downhill, but there's some times maybe he gets a little overly aggressive ahead of himself. He was a little loose with the ball, especially in the first half when he was kind of in that a little bit of a rut. But I'm sure that he's just kind of got to see it a little bit more in terms of his spots to pick, because there is a balance of, okay, we know that you've worked a lot on the mid-range, but we'd really like for you to go to the rim and draw fouls and get to the free throw line for easy points too. But there's no doubt that that's a nice range where, especially when the three ball's not going or it's a little streaky, which it has been for him, that that 15, 18-foot area. Where I don't think teams are going to put a lot of emphasis on guarding him, at least right now, that there's points to be had there for sure.
All right, let's get to a few questions before we get out of here, Derek. Brock asks, what's the ceiling for DGL this year and for his Illinois career? Got any comps? I love a good comp too, Brock, so I understand.
Well, I'll tell you that Purdue thought of him as like a Carson Edwards type. And I know he's not as thick as Carson, but
he's longer. That's for
he's
sure.
longer too. Yeah. But in terms of just a pure scorer that can be explosive, uses athleticism. Again, they're different in some senses, but I think the ability to be can he be a all Big Ten potential
Yes.
NBA guy? Yeah, I mean, I think he's got that because of the athleticism and the natural talent. What the ceiling is this year? I mean, I think it's going to be. Is there a range of outcomes where he ends up being a starter? Is there a range of outcomes where, depending on what Ty looks like at point guard, and if Draven really settles in, and you put him out there, then maybe you have 5 potential shooters on the court. I think that's possible. I would doubt that. I would think it's more likely that he's going to be that off the bench, maybe second guy in along with Justin Harmon or with Luke. Maybe a 15 to 20 minute a game guy. There's traffic ahead of him too. So
he's not as big as this guy, Derek, not like as thick, but I'm just trying to think of a guy recently in the Big Ten that was a guard, kind of more of a 2 guard, but can handle and is really explosive at the rim and can get buckets. He's not going to be a lottery pick, but there's like that Jaden Ivey kind of quality to him. You know what I mean? Like Jaden's thick, right?
Yeah.
Dre does not have that. He's like 40 pounds less than what Jaden Ivey was, but like a mix of that and a little bit smaller of a body. Like he's got that kind of game to him. Yeah,
no, it is that twitchiness, that athleticism that he obviously can rely on. And we'll see. I think the body, like you think about Jaden Ivey, you think about who he was a little bit, kind of his latter stages there at Purdue. But I mean, it's someone that's dangerous downhill. It's someone that in the open court, I think there's still things that we can see out of Dre that, end to end, I think he's going to have some real splash plays when he gets a full head of steam. So he's fun. He's a fun player. He's got the ability to make some splash electric plays. And I think that you got a taste of that tonight, and we'll see if you can continue to build on that.
Jaden Ivey game in a Trey Burke body.
Yeah, maybe.
That's something like those are 2 damn good players, by the way. So I'm not trying to say he's gonna be that. Jake, Goody looked good, but I feel like he will only do that against lower competition. I don't know, man. He shoots and he plays his butt off. I think that translates to anybody. He gets open shots, man. He's knocking them down. Like he's in a really important player for this team. I mean, 3 of 5 from 3. He's not going to do that every night, but this is the one guy I think on this team that's going to shoot potentially 40% from 3.
Yeah, and you need that. You need someone that's going to be steady from beyond the arc. And, I think that, I mean, he had some stretches as a freshman where he comes in against a Michigan State team and makes some plays. And he's going to be a scrapper on the glass. He showed that. He's going to be an energy guy. He's going to be someone that the ball moves with him. I like the kind of the chemistry that we've seen early on between him and Marcus Damas. Those guys just seem to feed off each other. Like they can find each other cross court passes and just good field players that obviously can stretch a defense and shoot from beyond the arc as well. So I get it. I mean, some people are going to see the fact that, he's not the most athletic guy out there. He defensively, we'll see. Depending on the matchups, he can get exploited a little bit. I understand that as well, but I think that I'm not calling him. I'm not gonna say he's going to be your Andrew Funk, but I would think there'd be some times where, depending on defensively or athleticism wise, there have been shooters on down the line that maybe don't bring some other things, but when they knock in threes, it kind of balances itself out. So I think that he can serve a valuable role for this team still.
I hate to do the white guy comp again, but we did this when he was a recruit. Can he be their Matt McQuaid? I think he is capable of doing something like that. John, free throws plagued Illinois last year. Looks to be the same this year too. That is a sure weakness, and it will probably cost them games. That is a real weakness. And tonight it went even to their good shooters. Domask was 1 of 2. Coleman 1 of 2. Shannon, who's like 75 to 80%, 3 of 8 from the free throw line tonight. He was the worst offender of all of this. So I'm not going to be too concerned. I got a huge sample size of Terrence Shannon, but yes, this team is not good at free throws. Ty Rodgers missed his 1 tonight. That guy's not confident at the free throw line.
Yeah, you can't argue with it. I mean, there's enough of a sample size last year that it was a big problem. And I think that we'll see obviously how things progress, but paired with like some of the point guard playmaking against pressure defense with free throw shooting, I think late game could get a little hairy at times. We'll see. But yeah, you're leaving points out there by some of these guys going to the line not converting. It's frustrating. It's frustrating for fans to watch.
I saw a couple people mention Coleman and Brad. They saw a video on the sidelines of them getting into it. Listen, Brad reels into his players. He got after Goody at one point. So some of those confrontations I don't take a ton from. Coleman and Brad have had a lot of those moments throughout the years, and Coleman continues to be here and continues to play for him. So I don't know if you got any insight there, Derek, if you saw it. But it was a bad night for Coleman, and his coach got after him. That's not a surprise.
No, and I had somebody text me who was watching the game too and said that him and Tim Anderson apparently had what looked like a long talk on the bench when he came out. So, I mean, Coleman's an emotional guy. He has been. Him and Brad have butted heads at times. It happens. I think I go back to what I said. I think there's a little bit of accountability there when you look at his minutes and Brad not liking what he was seeing. Coleman was at the 5, kind of getting pushed around a little bit. I don't think Brad liked that as far as the rebounding, some of the defense on Jermaine Hamlin, and he made a couple of turnovers. I think one time I really liked the pump fake from the top of the key. He drove it, but he was off. He didn't jump stop. He was off balance. He thought Quincy was going to space to the corner. Quincy cut, and he threw it out of bounds. So it's one of those nights that just he didn't play that well. Obviously, when you're a senior, when you're a guy that has NBA draft stock, you expect a little bit more, a lot of bit more, and more consistency when you're supposed to be a guy that leads and sets the tone. So, but I don't want to take too big a grand takeaway. I mean, obviously Coleman, if he had a problem with the way Brad coached him, he wouldn't be here.
Would have been here. Yeah, would have been here last year.
This year, last year, he's riding with it, obviously.
Yeah. Last thing before we go here, Derek. Signing day later this week. Class of 3 that ranks number 18 in the country. Merez Johnson finally will sign a national letter of intent with Illinois. And, of course, Jason Jaxtis, who's really risen in the 24/7 sports rankings. You see on the screen, number 110. And, of course, the guard they just took, Jace Butler, out of California. Just what do you think of this class?
Merez is a dynamite get. And I think some of it's worn off probably in terms of maybe fans have let that impact maybe just be taken for granted a little bit because he's been in the class for so long, because he's been committed for 2 years now essentially. So and his stock just continues to elevate. He's going to have a chance. We're not, disclaimer, we don't make the rankings. We don't have input as far as he should be higher than this guy. I just know that at Peach Jam against the best of the best, he was one of the best players out there at any position. And I think that his athleticism obviously shows, his toughness. He's adding some more to his bag offensively, getting more. I mean, he's very comfortable with either hand around the rim. I think he's got some spin moves, some face-up game. If the jump shot can progress a little bit more, I think that's something that can really check a lot of the boxes there. So let's do the Big Ten comp, because I enjoy these, Derek, and I'm not afraid to do them. Yeah.
Musa Diabate would be mine. And if Musa Diabate would have stuck around for a sophomore year, I think he would have been pretty ridiculous. Musa's a little bit bigger, but Merez's motor might be better.
Yeah, I think Merez is a little bit more rugged, but I definitely that's something that Illinois, like around the time of his commitment, that was some of what you were hearing in terms of the projectable, is just a guy that's got length, that's got athleticism, that can kind of, at the time they thought maybe he was a 4/5, and now it seems pretty clear, he's going to be, even though he's listed there as a power forward, he's best as a 5-man, at least for right now. But
is there a Bruno Fernando comp in there?
Maybe as he continues to get strong. I mean, he's a strong dude. Bruno was maybe a little bit another level. Kind of, I thought that Kofi had a decent amount of Bruno in him. Obviously, Kofi maybe is a little bit another layer of thick, but I like the Diabate. Maybe just a little bit more dog to him, in my opinion.
All right, Jaxtis and Butler. What do you got there?
Well, Jackson is obviously Ethan Happ. I don't know what else anybody else is saying there, but no, I just
Crowell, Stephen Crowell.
Yeah, Stephen Crowell, maybe.
What Wisconsin big man can we pick there?
Take your pick.
That's what it is, right?
Take your pick. But I like what I saw from him in the summer. I see the projectable stuff, like as far as 6'10". I think he moves pretty well. He's more mobile, more athletic than Brandon Lee. Anybody that's there's gonna be people that look and see, hey, he's tall and white and skinny, and he's the same guy as that. But he's got a ability to stretch it out, shoot it a little bit, make some plays off the dribble. It's a long-term play. They're probably gonna redshirt him. I think that's kind of been in the plans in terms of talking to what that looks like, and seeing if you can really tap into his longer-term potential by building up his body. But I think fans should like the fact that Eric Bossi saw him in July, and obviously liked him enough to rank him close to the top 100, and he's shown some things against the Under Armour circuit. So
24/7 Sports, the high man, Jason Jaxtis. So it's maybe higher than even in we were coming into this, but Bossy saw him against top competition, as you said there.
Yeah, and it was someone that some other high majors were trying to push, and I know Clemson liked him a lot. I know that Notre Dame was messing around with him for a second, and Illinois was able to close it. So it's a projectable one. It's one of those that can look really good a couple 3 years from now. It's one of those that maybe some would say it was a reach, but at least in terms of the ranking, that supports their evaluation as well.
And Jace Butler, they need more guards, obviously, Derek, and guards that can handle, create, and score.
Yeah, they think they found a diamond in the rough with him. A guy that didn't have another high major offer. I know Stanford pushed late and was trying to get him on campus right after Illinois as far as that visit goes. But he really, really showed well when they watched him in June. He was in an event in Phoenix and kind of has he's got a lefty game with a little bit of size to him. Obviously, at 6'4", got an ability to shoot it. They love his feel. I think he's a pure point guard. I know he's listed as a combo. They just think he's a really heady player that can make good passes, good reads out of pick and rolls. And they need more facilitators. They want guys in those roles that can shoot it. And I think that he's got that to him as well. And, I've talked about this a little bit. Merez mentioned it when I talked to him the other night. He's got a little bit of Jalen Brunson stylistically to him. I'm not saying he's going to be an All-American. I'm not saying he's going to sign a $100 million deal in the NBA, but they like they like who he's going to be projectable wise. I know that people will very much monitor who Jace Butler is versus who Mikey Lewis is because of those commitments or those recruitments being kind of intertwined. And Illinois seemingly preferred Jace Butler, at least wanted to take the guy that wanted to come, and they pushed Jace Butler to come. So I think that's something that's going to be interesting to play out, but they're very, very high on who he's going to be.
Yeah, what stands out to me is how big his body is. Like he's physically ready to play, and then he's skilled. Like you said, he's not the quickest, most athletic. I keep having Wisconsin guards come in my head, so I don't know if it's Chucky Hepburn or Jordan Taylor, who ended up being way better than his projection. But just those guys who can control a game, Derek, make everybody better and make some shots.
Yeah, no, that's a good value. You look at the fact of it's a different stylistic player than, say, Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn, who's twitchy and athletic and
one who complements Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn really well.
Right. Yeah. In terms of his passing, just a bigger body. Like Draven is a little on the smaller side, at least right now. I mean, he's wiry. He's long. I think he's got a frame that can build up some strength, but 6'4" gives you some versatility in terms of who you can guard. And then also, maybe if you're facing more of a athletic, twitchy point guard, you can throw Gibbs-Lawhorn on him and have Butler guard the 2 guard. And I think as you also factor in Illinois' pursuit of Jeremiah Fears, being a score-first player, being a guy that's a talented shot maker. Draven obviously is a guy that's wired to score. The idea that Jace is in there and can be more of a table setter too, and not necessarily a guy that's looking for his first and foremost. I think that really went into the thought process of trying to balance this out and try to find pieces that fit.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you to everybody for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. We're going to wrap it up there, but Illinois gets the victory 80-52. And now they got Oakland 7:00 Central Time on Friday. That'll be on the Big Ten streaming network, Big Plus. And then Derek, Marquette comes to town next week, and Marquette looked pretty good in their opener. Not really played anybody, but that's when it gets real. That's when it gets real for this team. They got to play a lot better tonight to beat Marquette.
Very, very real. A big opportunity for a win on your resume that can mean a lot. I mean, they're number 5 in the country for a reason. Tyler Kolek is thought to be one of the best point guards out there, a guy that can really shoot it. And Marquette was one of the hottest teams going into the tournament last year. They're the last team to beat UConn when you look back at the Big East tournament. So, I mean, they returned a lot from that squad. So that's a legit test. And side note, I forgot for a hot second that Rocket Watts is still playing, and he's at
Is he really?
I mean, isn't that what Brad said in the postgame? I thought he said –
yeah, the dude who takes 18 threes in a game against Oakland. So Greg Campy, man, 40 years he's been there. He took Kendrick Nunn on the comeback and turned Kendrick Nunn into an NBA prospect, putting the ball in his hands. They play a fast, loose style. They chuck it up there, and they're dangerous, man. If Illinois doesn't make threes that night and Oakland makes their 10+ as they do every game, that could be a scary game.
He's had some good teams through the years. Maybe not as many recently, but them pushing Ohio State all the way to the brink. That was a 3-point game with 15 seconds to go. Ohio State wins by 6. I know Illinois projected to be a better team than the Buckeyes this year. But, if Illinois comes out flat, if Illinois struggles to shoot both from the 3 and from the free throw line, there's a number of teams that could beat them. And Oakland, with their firepower, I mean, it was kind of funny, though, looking at the box. They had a guy that literally shot 17 threes tonight.
Yeah.
Like, he took 17 shots, and all 17 were from 3. That's crazy. But
as a team, they shot 14 of 35. That's 40%. Scary. It's a little scary.
It could be. Yeah, it's upsets are made of those sometimes.
Yeah. All right, basketball season is back. We are pumped about it. We got plenty of content coming. Joey's got a story on Rich McBride, who coaches on the Eastern Illinois staff. Did a great job with that, so I'm looking forward to reading that. Derek Piper will have player grades, and I'll probably have something up on Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn in the morning as well. So thank you, everybody, for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Thanks to all of our listeners and watchers on YouTube, more than 300 people at one point. Hit the like button on the way out. Subscribe to us. Hit the notifications bell. We appreciate all of the support. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.